Alright, hey everyone, Matt Martinez here with this week's installment of my Art in the Industry podcast. So last week we had iconic frontwoman Grace Slick of Jefferson Airplane in studio with us, talking a bit about her work in the band and also her involvement with visual arts, as well as discussing some of her many paintings. But this week, however, we have a special guest and a very close friend of mine, fellow songwriter and tracking engineer Everett Schuster. Everett wasn't able to make it in studio with us today, unfortunately, so I sent him a couple questions via email and currently have his answers sitting right in front of me on my desk. For those of you also that don't know Everett, he's also a painter in his free time and a strong supporter of the visual arts and those involved in its community. So without further ado, these are the questions, and here are his answers. So the first question we asked him was, what do you see as the role of the visual arts in society today, particularly in your profession? To which he answered, working in music primarily, I feel like there's always been this sense of unity and this correlation between visual arts and music. Now when I say visual arts, I'm not only limiting this answer to paintings and handmade works of art, but I'm also including and referring to graphic design and film as well. Having a visual has always made interpreting music a much more interesting thing. It's amazing that a piece of music alone that someone wrote based off of first-hand experiences can move people, comfort people, and inspire people subjectively on so many different levels. Adding visual to the music, for instance, through music videos and album artwork, helps tell the story and aids the music in being more than just a sonic experience. It turns it into an all-around intricate piece of emotional expression through the unity of two different aspects of art when joined together. Next, new communications and media technologies make imagery almost instantly available. Do you believe this is having a positive or negative influence on your field? To which he answered, lightly referring back to my previous answer, I feel like visuals and imagery go almost hand in hand with all forms of art, especially through new media and technology. There are both pros and cons to having all of this new technology displaying everything and putting it in the palm of our hands. But I like to focus on the positive side. With social media booming, it has become so much easier for artists around the world to showcase themselves and their work for millions of people to see. Instagram is a prime example. I often find myself looking through the popular page in this application, and some of the things I see are just astonishing. There are so many talented artists out there that are able to make a living posting pictures of their artwork online and selling it using sites like Instagram. They don't need to rent or buy spaces to host galleries of their art. This brings the cost of marketing themselves down, which lets them put more effort into their actual artwork. It's incredible and definitely a great thing. What popular images do you see that are frequently repeated throughout your industry? The answers. When you work in the recording industry, some of the only visual art you get exposed to is what gets put on the cover of albums. Outside of recording in the industry, as well as within it, one album's cover that I've seen the most in my life is probably Abbey Road by the Beatles. Great album with an interesting cover. Next, we asked him who one of his favorite visual artists is, and maybe what his favorite style of visual art is as well. To this he answered, I have always been very interested in paintings that use darker themes and that are very strange and abnormal. My favorite artist is Esau Andrews. He's a fairly young painter out of Arizona who paints very much like the style that I am interested in. His works have been featured on all 4 of Circa Survive's albums, which also happens to be one of my favorite bands. Finally, we asked him one last question, which was, how has your knowledge of famous artworks influenced your creative process? To this he responds with, I am a very visual person. When I record and mix, I can close my eyes and create a visual out of what I am listening to. Every instrument has its own place in the mix, and I can visually see where things need to be placed. That might just be the artist in me, but as I stated before, I think being able to see your work and make a visual connection, be it mentally visual or physically visual, is very important, at least to me. It serves as a guide and definitely helps me see the direction in which I am headed artistically. Alright, that's all the time we have for this week's episode. Huge thanks to Everett for taking time out to answer some of our questions we had regarding art in the music industry. And thanks to you guys for listening in. We'll see you next week. This is Matt from the Recording Arts degree program, signing off.